Most guitarists are told that improvising is all about memorizing scale shapes and finding licks that work inside of them, but there's a problem with that. That approach hits a ceiling where everything you play starts to sound robotic, disconnected, and predictable, and it doesn't actually help you understand what you're doing on the fretboard. This is because improvising isn't about scale shapes or copy-pasting licks. Improvising is about expression. Today I'm going to show you 3 simple steps that unlock the ability to express yourself on the fretboard, and the best part is this is built off of what you already know. Now, I've been playing live and getting invited to sessions for a decade, often told to just let it rip. And I help intermediate guitarists express themselves freely all over the fretboard, so I know these 3 steps will change the way you think about improvising forever. But first, we need to get on the same page. Improvising is a choice, and the dictionary definition of choosing is to decide to accept someone or something from a group of possibilities. So when we think about that, relating it back to music, we have all of the notes to choose from, and on guitar we even have the notes between the notes, right? We can bend in between them. Right, we have all of the notes between the notes. It's just about choosing what notes we want to play and how. Step 1 is focusing on phrasing by making a choice. To make a choice, we have to know what our options are. So to start with, the 2 most basic options would be to find the 2 most basic notes you can pick playing over any given chord. Let's use A minor, for example. If we're on an A minor, and we want to know what are the 2 notes we could most easily pick as our choices to play over, we would pick the root note, which would be A, or A. I'm on the 7th fret of the D, and we would pick the 3rd of that chord, which would be a flat 3 since it's a minor chord. So that would be on the 5th fret of the G string, and these intervals are everywhere. This is just one spot to think about it. The first thing we would want to do is just have those 2 options and see how we can choose them to make them work. Like, we want to really be able to make phrases with just the easiest options. Otherwise, the harder decisions later are going to be way harder to make. And as we get comfortable using only those 2 notes, we can start to ask ourselves, what are the surrounding notes in the scale around those 2 notes? So if we were on our thinking A minor pentatonic, both of those notes are inside of that. So we just have to ask ourselves, like, what are the notes right next to it? Well, on this 1, we would have our note right below, 5 on D string, and we can go right up to 5 on the G string too, which is actually our 3rd as well. There's a note between that if you go for the full minor scale, which would be on the 4th fret of the G. So you can also use that one as a little in-between note. And then when you're on that 3, you can go down to the 1, down to that 4th fret on the G string, or up here, up in the scale. So then you can experiment with using the surrounding notes to express the most basic options that you pick. But sometimes when we're improvising, these choices get harder to make, especially when we add in more notes. It's like choosing between a 1961 Sunburst Stratocaster and a Klon Centaur overdrive pedal. It's hard to choose which one would you actually want to have in your collection, right? So that brings us to step 2 of thinking ahead to where your choices actually take you. Like, there's a second order consequence to all of the choices that you make, right? Let's say, for example, you, instead of practicing guitar, just watch TV all the time. The second order consequences of that would be that you're not getting as good at guitar as if you spent that time playing guitar. And when we're improvising, our choices also have second order consequences in the sense of we need to think ahead to where the chords are going. Because if we're making choices around one chord and it doesn't lead to what we actually want to do playing over the next chord, then it's just not going to work. So now we're going to add a second chord in. We had our A minor before, right? We're going to add in another chord, which is going to be F, into our progression. And we're going to do the same thing, adding the 1 and the 3 from F and using those as our most obvious choices to play over. So if we have our 1 and 3 on A, being that 7 on D and 5 on G, then we want to find where's a close area that we could use our 1 and 3 of F. Well, I would say we could go to here, which would be the 8th fret on the A string and the 7th fret on the D string, which kind of extends below our pentatonic a little. You have to kind of go into the actual minor scale here to get that F, and then your 3 right there. So then it would come down to how can we express ourselves with only those notes, using both chords, thinking ahead to where the chord lands. Now, what do I mean when I say thinking ahead? Well, you want to work your lines in a way that you can land on the notes you're going to for the new chords. For example, if I'm sitting on the 1 and the 3 of A here, right? If I want to lead the chords to the F, or the notes to the F that I'm playing, so I might play something like... See how I worked the note from that A? I went down the scale and then slid into the F. So playing it over the chords, it would look like this. Now that we're playing over a second chord, we can start to add more notes to our chords, because these basic major and minor chords are built out of 3 notes, not the 2 that we have now. We have the 1 and we have the 3, but we need to add the 5 into both of these. So for our A minor, we could add the 5 on the 5th fret of the B string. And then for our F, we can add the 5 on the 5th fret of the G string. So using all of those could look like this. Step 3 is going to be gathering data to make the best choices that we can. For example, if we went back to choosing between that 1961 Sunburst Strat and the Klon Centaur, and we gathered some data on it, I would probably look at the price of the Klon Centaur and say, maybe I don't want to spend $10,000 on a fucking overdrive pedal. When you gather data on the options, it becomes clear which choices you can make and which choices you want to make. Relating this back to improvising, we want to try out all of our options to see what we like. And we want to gather data, learn more about the chords so that we can know what we're doing. And you want to think about the guitar in a long-term kind of way. Because I'd imagine if you made it through this whole video, you probably intend to play guitar for most, if not all of your life. So you want to think long-term about your progress and what you're learning. Like you might learn one little tiny thing here, one little tiny thing there, but one little tiny thing here and there over the next 50 years is going to do a lot, right? So when you're improvising, try out every idea that you think might not even sound good, or the ideas you think are going to be amazing, all of it, and just remember how it sounds. Think about why did it sound like that? Like, what were you actually playing? And get the data of what you're doing so you can make better and better choices as you keep going. And if you're an intermediate guitarist that's tired of learning useless licks and being stuck in the pentatonic box, and you want to know how to actually play over chord changes instead of just faking your way through them, then check out this video right here, and I'll show you exactly how I help intermediate players unlock the fretboard.